Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, and it is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
I will tell you, today I'm wearing a T-shirt. It's T-shirt weather out there, and I am wondering, is the bad weather of the winter of 2024-2025 behind us now? You know, we always have one snow a year. We had our little snow that one day. It was cold last week. We always have that week where it's freaking freezing cold. I feel like that's behind us. Ian, are we T-shirt weather the rest of the year?
I can't say T-shirt weather rest of the year, but I think maybe the big cold snaps might be mostly done.
Okay. We're so close. So close. My Canadian in-laws don't understand why we don't have a coat rack. Listen, because we wear coats for like 2 weeks out of the year. So I have watched Cam Ward's tape. Again, not all of it, not every game. I watched 4 games worth of Cam Ward. I feel like I've got a good enough feeling about what Cam Ward is. And so with that, we haven't done this in a while, Ian. We got to brush this off.
Yeah, we do.
It's time for Jared's Film Room.
You are now entering Jared's Film Room.
I thought it was important to actually watch the Cam Ward tape myself instead of just listening to what one guy says and then another guy says, and then I talk to a guy in the league, and then I just say, okay, this is what Cam Ward is, without just sitting down and watching Cam Ward's tape. And I tried to be as unbiased as possible. So, without further ado, here's what I saw. I saw some talent in Cam Ward. Like, I think there's something there. But at the same time, I would not risk my career on Cam Ward. I would not pound the table in defense of Cam Ward. So I like him. You know, there's a little something there, but I certainly don't love him. So here's what I see when it comes to Cam Ward. I see someone with some good arm talent. There are a couple of throws he made. There was a touchdown pass he threw into the back of the end zone about 50 yards away against Louisville. That was a special throw. There were some throws I really liked in the half of the bowl game that he played. You know, where, again, he can just put the ball 50 yards down the field. It's not as effortless as Anthony Richardson throwing the ball, but it is rather effortless how he can move the ball with his arm. But it's not off the charts great arm talent. You know, it's not superstar Matthew Stafford level arm talent. It's good arm talent. And then I see the athleticism, and it's good athleticism. But it's not great athleticism. It's more Jalen Hurts athleticism and not Lamar Jackson athleticism. Now, when it comes to blitz recognition, one of two things is happening. He either A, doesn't recognize the blitz at all, as in there can be 8 guys up and around the line of scrimmage showing blitz on 3rd and 6. He's in the shotgun. He never takes a snap under center. He's in the shotgun on 3rd down and 6. There's 8 guys in the line of scrimmage. He's standing there, 52, 58. Okay, let's look over at the sidelines. 52, 58. And then he claps and the ball comes. And he either doesn't recognize that they're blitzing or he doesn't give a rat's ass. And he stands back there and lets them come. Miami's offensive line is actually a lot better than I thought it would be. And they come through the line of scrimmage, and he doesn't know, and he's waiting for guys to get open, and then he tries to juke around these guys. I mean, again, he's got the talent to be able to survive doing that in the ACC. You can't do that in the NFL. You just cannot refuse to adjust to the blitz in the NFL. Only on one occasion in the games I watched, and that was in the bowl game, and it happened one time, was there a blitz, and he turned to the sideline, and then he clapped, got the ball, and quick out. Now, I mean, again, he can make some great throws, and there were a couple where, again, the blitz didn't get picked up, guys coming right at him, and he kind of just like jukes around the guy and steps up and still keeps his eyes down the field and then can throw off of 1 foot. He's a very fluid athlete. He is a very fluid. It's not robotic like I got to run or I got to pass. I mean, it is, I'm running around, I'm weaving around, I'm make a guy miss here, step off 1 foot, throw the ball, which I do like. But you can't just ignore the blitz, especially when you're playing for the Titans, which might be a problem. I also think that Cam Ward is a below average decision maker and will put the ball in harm's way, and that will get highlighted in the NFL because things that are open in college are technically not open in the NFL. There's a lot of throws that Cam Ward made where it looked like it was a nice throw, but the guy was wide freaking open. You're not going to have that in the NFL unless you have some kind of great schemers and again, we know what wins in the NFL: talent, contested catches, great route running. That's what wins in the NFL. You cannot coach up bad receivers in the National Football League. So when it comes to the decision making, I was a little surprised by that because Cam Ward didn't throw a lot of interceptions at Miami. And I had heard that some people said that he was careless with the football. But as I was watching him, there was one throw in the bowl game where, he basically arm punted to Iowa State. And nothing happened. And on the next play, it was like it didn't bother him at all. There were some throws against Cal that, were very, very questionable, especially in the first half of that game. So I do not think that he takes very good care of the football, even though he didn't turn it over last year a lot at Miami. Again, he threw a jump ball for a defender in the Pop-Tarts Bowl that was just inexcusable. If Will Levis did that, we'd mock him for 3 weeks. What I do like about Cam Ward is his ability to make off-balance, off-platform throws on the run. His mechanics with his footwork, and I'm no guru here when it comes to the mechanics in the feet, but I know a quarterback needs to set his feet and keep his base wide when he throws. Ward doesn't do that. Ward will throw off his back foot. He'll throw off a 1 foot. He'll throw jumping up in the air. He'll throw while he's running. He'll throw and you can get away with that in college with the level of fluid athlete that Cam Ward is. I don't know if you can do that in the NFL, but what I do know is that kind of the new wave of quarterback is a guy that can make off-balance, off-platform throws. You either have to be just a great pocket passer, like Matthew Stafford, in order to survive in today's NFL as a statue. But what a lot of the guys, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, what a lot of those guys are doing are these kind of off-platform throws where they use their mobility to frustrate the defense, and a guy comes open, and if Vince Young had the ability to throw the ball off balance the way Cam Ward does, Vince Young might still be playing in the NFL. So I do like that a lot because that's the kind of stuff that you cannot coach a player to do. So just off of watching Cam Ward's tape, I see somebody who's got NFL talent and could develop into a solid NFL quarterback. He could develop into a really, really good NFL quarterback. Superstar quarterback, I'm not sure he checks enough boxes in terms of elite traits. Like, he's not an elite athlete. I wouldn't say that he has elite arm talent. He certainly does not have elite accuracy. And again, he's not an elite runner the way that Lamar Jackson is. But he's not a bad player. Like, he's not bad. He could be, he's a first-round pick. There's no second round grade. No. He is a first-round pick. And that is off of watching Cam Ward's tape. I kept trying to think of a comp to Cam Ward as I was watching him play and not trying to use anybody else's. Like, I had Rick Spielman's comp in my head where he said, a better version of Tyrod Taylor. Now, I haven't watched enough Tyrod Taylor to be able to tell you if that's good or bad.
That kind of feels like an arm motion kind of thing, doesn't it? The Tyrod Taylor Cam Ward comp.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I also think it's the level of athlete that the two are.
Mm-hmm.
They're good athletes, but they're not Anthony Richardson level athletes. They're not Michael Vick level athletes. They're not, I use Jalen Hurts as kind of an example of that kind of athlete. Jalen Hurts is a good athlete, but he's not a great athlete. Ryan Tannehill, good athlete. He's not a great athlete. Now, Ward's a better athlete than Tannehill, but he's not. So, again, like with each comp that I kind of wrote down when it came to Ward, like there was a little bit of this, but not all of that. Like, for instance, the first one that popped into my mind, Deshaun Watson, but not as good of a pocket passer. And Deshaun's not really about and I'm talking about Texans Deshaun. He's not really about off-balance throws. He's not really, but he's athletic. Again, not a great athlete, but a good athlete. Good arm. Good size, probably better size than Deshaun. He's got a little Kyler in his game, but he's not as athletic as Kyler, but he's bigger than Kyler. I think he's like a little Daniel Jones with more talent, throwing the football. Daniel Jones is a very tough player, uses his athleticism a lot. I know we think he sucks, and he does, but Daniel Jones, there are some redeeming qualities. And like, he's got a little Anthony Richardson to him, except he's not as big as Richardson. He's not as talented as Richardson. He's not the athlete Richardson is, but he has a lot more experience than Richardson. And I do think that is a very big positive. So when it comes to Cam Ward, I could see a team taking him in the first round. I'm not sure I fall in love with him. I'm not sure that if I was Mike Borgonzi and making that pick at 1-1 for Cam Ward would be risking my career in order to take him. I'm not sure I could do that. And then the big question that I have with Cam Ward is, will he learn to recognize defensive fronts in the National Football League so that he's not snapping the ball into blitzes? I mean, there were a lot of times where he snapped the ball into run blitzes, and they were running it. And it's like, dude, if the safety's dropping down, you can't snap the ball to where the defense is going to stop at 2 yards in the backfield. It is the quarterback's job to get you out of that play. But I don't know that there'd be any way for me to know what he's going to be able to learn down the road when, again, I've never met the guy. But I see the talent with Cam Ward. Just not sure I see number one pick talent with Cam Ward. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Plus, the first thing TD said yesterday on the TD Power Hour really stood out to me. We'll get into that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 through the game.
Yeah, it's really interesting. A lot of these personnel people down here, they firmly believe that Cam Ward is going to be the pick. There are some people who, they keep asking me, hey, are they going to trade down? You think they're going to trade down? And that quote that was boosted out of our local media session with Chad Brinker in regards to generational talent, that really has put a big influence on a lot of the thoughts and beliefs from people across the league, because that's one of the first things that I continue to see come up whenever someone comes to me or talk about the Titans, or I just ask someone else what they think.
That was TD on our program yesterday. He's saying the scuttlebutt that he heard from some personnel people he talked to around the NFL is that they expect Cam Ward to be the number one pick to the Tennessee Titans. And here's what I'll say after watching the Cam Ward tape. Here's what I will say. Is Mike Borgonzi ready to risk his career out of the chute on a quarterback who this time last year decided to go back to college because he was a day 3 pick? Is Mike Borgonzi ready to, again, put all the chips in the middle? We think Borgonzi's making the pick, right? Again, with the Titans, you never know. I would argue that Borgonzi and Brinker and all these guys, they're all linked together. But as we saw with the Brinker and the Rand thing, Amy can love one guy and hate the other guy as part of the same administration. And who knows? But, like, if you take Cam Ward number 1 in a traditional NFL building, every single person is now responsible for Cam Ward's success. Every single person. And if he doesn't work out, we'll know 3 years from now, and everybody will be fired because you won't win enough games because you'll be trying out Cam Ward, and while you're trying out Cam Ward, you'll be losing. But that's just if he's not good. Again, I've watched Cam Ward's tape, and there are some things about Cam Ward that I do like. There are some throws that are really special. There are especially this off-balance, off-platform, feet not set, ball 20 yards right in the guy's hands to the opposite hash. But he doesn't recognize the blitz. His mechanics are inconsistent, and I hope he'll be able to learn those things, but there's no guarantee. So I do wonder when it comes to the scuttlebutt that TD's hearing, which is the idea that, hey, Tennessee's taking Cam Ward number 1. Now, I will just say this without knowing for certain, but I'd say it's pretty safe. They don't know who they're taking number 1. They've never met Cam Ward. Like, did Chad Brinker ever meet has Chad Brinker ever met Cam Ward? Has Mike Borgonzi ever met Cam Ward? Now, there is a possibility that knowing that they were going to be looking quarterback in the draft, that Brinker at one point went to a practice at Miami or went to a game at Miami and met Cam Ward. So it is feasible that they've met. But there also hasn't been any whiteboard sessions where they sit down with Cam Ward and they ask Cam Ward, Cam, on this play against Cal in the first half, where they got 6 guys all hovering around the line of scrimmage on 3rd down and 11, when you can just literally take one step, throw the ball to the tight end in the seam, let him run for the first down. Do you know that they're blitzing right here? If they haven't sat there and had those conversations with Cam Ward, there's no way they know they're taking Cam Ward. Chicago knew this time last year they were taking Caleb Williams. Like, they knew it. Cam Ward is not that level of prospect. So, again, going back to all the personnel people, I really want to know the why. Why do they think the Titans are going to take Cam Ward? Do they think the Titans are going to take Cam Ward with the number 1 pick because, well, they don't have a quarterback and, well, he's our number 1 quarterback. So if they don't have a quarterback and he's the number 1 quarterback, they're going to take him. I mean, that's what Mel Kiper Jr. did in his mock draft. Mel Kiper's got a mock draft out, and Mel, when explaining his mock draft that has Cam Ward at number 1 to the Titans, he said, I don't have them graded as high as I had the guys last year. I had a 9.8 on Caleb, Drake, and Jaden. I got a 9.1, 9.2 when it comes to Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. I actually have Shedeur Sanders ranked ahead of Cam Ward, but the people I talk to in the league, they tell me Cam Ward QB1, so I've got him going number 1. And I understand the logic. But at the same time, when everybody puts together a mock draft, me included, when everybody puts together a mock draft, I think there's kind of this sense of, well, they need a tackle. So who's the best tackle on the board? Dalise Fuaga. All right, he's going to them. And unfortunately, that is how a lot of teams do business in the NFL. It's not really the right way to do business, but it is how a lot of teams do business in the NFL. But that would be the one thing I would say. After I watched the Cam Ward tape would be, do you, and I'm talking about Borgonzi and Brinker and these guys, are you willing to risk your career on these guys? Because general managers don't get second shots. They just don't. John Robinson won 61% of his games. And if you talk to anybody about John Robinson, what will they tell you? He traded away A.J. Brown. And that's it. It's not fair, but it's the truth. Thomas Dimitrov built a team that had a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl and completely gagged it away. And you can't blame the general manager for a team gagging away a lead against the greatest quarterback who ever lived. But on Monday's show, Thomas Dimitrov will be joining us at 4 o'clock, not being a general manager anymore, because you don't get second chances. So that's all I would say is there's a lot to like about Cam Ward. And if you use the 16th pick on Cam Ward in the draft, there's some wiggle room. Because again, the expectation of the 16th pick is not the same as the expectation of the first pick. It's just the truth. For the fans, for the owner, for TV, everybody. Mariota, second pick in the draft, high expectations. So would you be willing to risk your career on a guy who is a good athlete? He's not an elite athlete. On a guy who's got really good arm talent and does have playmaking ability, but he also puts the ball in harm's way. A guy who might need to sit the bench because he doesn't recognize the blitz right now. It's got to hammer out his mechanics. There's a lot that goes into play when it comes to Cam Ward. And again, I keep using that phrase, risking your career. You are not risking your career with a 1-year contract for Justin Fields. You're just not. You're not risking your career if you trade back and in a different draft with the 9th pick, take Cam Ward. But there is something special about the number 1 pick. And that would be my question for Mike Borgonzi, which he's probably watched a lot more Cam Ward tape than I have. But that would be my question is, if everybody thinks you're going to pick this guy, I have to ask you, are you willing to risk your career on this particular guy? 615-737-1025. More of your phones, 615-737-1025. I say more of your phones. We'll get to your phones on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. And there is one thing that if I was general manager of the Titans, that again, I can't sit here right now and just tell you, oh, I take this guy or, oh, I take that guy. But there is one particular thing that if I was general manager of the Titans and I was really considering taking Cam Ward at number 1, that would be massive to me. And we'll get to that next. Nashville's best deal this week is Single Tree Barbecue in Murfreesboro. Single Tree Barbecue is a locally veteran-owned and operated business only serving world-class barbecue. Let me just say this. World-class barbecue right now sounds really, really good. World-class barbecue with the perfect combination of sides and desserts. Get half off a $25 gift card now while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals.
Cam Ward should be at the top of this list. And I say that hesitantly, but nevertheless, I'm going to agree with Mike T on this. Shador has all the intangibles, and we love the poise. We love the pedigree. We know where he gets what he has from. He can make the requisite throws. He can chunk up some yards on the ground, but he's not that mobile. So listen to what they say about him. His arm is not that strong. He's not that mobile, but he's a winner. He finds a way to get things done. You know, that's the kind of stuff that we've said about the Brock Purdy's of the world and others. Obviously, I think Shador is an upgrade from that athletically, but nevertheless, that's what we're talking about here. When you look at Cam Ward, 67% of his passes completed, 4,313 yards, FBS best, 39 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions, played 5 years in college. 5 years. In that time span, 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. We can't ignore that. And so he has size, he has arm strength, he has all of those different things. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, let's say you're talking about Cleveland, let's say you're talking about Tennessee, let's say you're talking about New York. I think you have to take those confines into consideration as opposed to somebody playing indoors or somebody playing in confines like Los Angeles, for example. I think those things have to get taken into consideration. And your size, your durability, your arm strength, I think those things have to come into play when you talk about playing in inclement weather in the National Football League against grown men.
Stephen A. Smith says Cam Ward top of the board. Ian, that was 1:30 of Stephen A. breaking down Cam Ward. How much Cam Ward do you think he's watched?
1:30.
You think he's watched 1:30 to be able to talk 1:30?
Something like that, yeah.
I don't even know if he's watched 1:30, but there you go, Stephen A. on Cam Ward. So if I were the Titans, and I now feel like I have a pretty decent feel for Cam Ward, the player, like just what I saw in Miami games last year. If I were the Titans, because look, I need a quarterback, and you guys know I love Sam Darnold, but again, Minnesota has to be willing to either let him walk via the tag, or they have to be willing to trade Sam Darnold to me. And then Sam Darnold has to want to come to me and sign a contract extension that's reasonable before I even pull the trigger on that. So I got to get a quarterback somewhere, and I do get to control who I draft. So when it comes to Cam Ward and comparing him to Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, the meetings would be massive. The meetings at the combine, the meetings at the top 30 visits when he comes into St. Thomas Sports Park, the meetings, wherever I might get him, they'll work him out. They'll go down to Miami and they'll work him out and they'll spend time with him. The meetings would be massive. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know what kind of guy Cam Ward is. I have no idea. And I'm not going to pretend, though I did see a cut on Twitter last night. Ian, I don't know if you saw this, but it was a Giants fan on the sideline, I believe at that Shrine Bowl game.
No, I didn't see it.
Sanders.
No.
So Ward and Sanders are on the sideline, and they're asking the Giant fan who they want to take with the third pick between Sanders and Ward. And the Giant fan is like, well, neither of you guys are going to get to us, so it doesn't even matter. And Cam Ward was like, no. Let's say Abdul Carter goes 1, Travis Hunter goes 2, and you're on the clock at 3. Who would you pick between us? And they were having good fun with it. And I was like, you know what? That showed some humility and some fun and some likability. Now, again, you need to know them a lot better than that, and the Titans will. But the meetings would be massive. The whiteboard would be massive. The tape and going over, okay, why did you hold on to the ball here when clearly they're bringing the blitz would be huge. And here's what I would want to know when it comes to Cam Ward. If I sat down with Cam Ward and spent 20 minutes and he's trying to win me over to be the number 1 pick. Number 1, does Cam Ward know what he has to work on? Like, does he know? Or is it just like, hey, man, you call the plays. I sit behind the line of scrimmage and snap it into whatever you called. Well, if they're showing an 8 or 9 man front and we've got just Tony Pollard standing there in the backfield, if you hand him the ball, he's going to go down 3 yards in the backfield. So, again, at that point, you got to change a play. Do you know you have to do this, or At Miami, was it just run whatever they call? Does he know that the Titans will not be able to snap the ball into a blitz and wait for receivers to get open? Because you will not have a choice with this offensive line, and it will be better, but this offensive line, you will not have a choice. If they are showing a 7-man blitz and you've got 5 men in protection or 6 with a back, somebody is coming home. Ball's got to come out. So that's the first thing. Like, does he know what he needs to work on? Number 2, is Cam Ward the kind of leader? And I shouldn't even just say leader, but is he the kind of person who inspires you when you meet with him? Does he inspire you? That you spent a whole day with Cam Ward, all the meetings, all the whiteboard, and you walked away saying, that young man is going to be something. And then that gives me an idea that the entire locker room will get behind him. Ed Orgeron told Colin Cowherd a story years ago that when Joe Burrow came on a recruiting visit, Joe Burrow told Ed Orgeron the only thing he wanted to do was eat crawfish and talk football. He didn't want to go out and see the city, and he didn't want to just like, hey, let's get some crawfish and let's talk ball. And Ed Orgeron said on the Colin Cowherd podcast, he goes, well, we got in the room and there were 5 of us in the room. And within 10 minutes, you knew he was the smartest one in the room. Like, is that what the meeting with Cam Ward's like? Where he's sitting down with Brian Callahan and Nick Holtz and all these guys, and you walk away from it and you're like, holy crap, this guy knows ball. And he's the kind of guy who inspires me because I know he's special. Does he give you that in the meeting? And then the third most important thing is, how much does he love football? Like, how much do you love this game? Because Cam Ward has a lot of work to do. And if you love football, you'll put in the work no matter what, because every day the opportunity to compete is what drives you. Like that, clearly Patrick Mahomes loves football and loves competing because he not only puts the work in, but he could easily rest on his laurels. But he doesn't. He keeps playing because he loves the game. And if you don't love the game, then I think it's pretty easy to kick your feet up with a $40 million check, because that's what Cam Ward's going to get. The first overall pick is going to get a $40 million fully guaranteed contract. And I think it'd be pretty easy to kick your feet up and play Call of Duty like Kyler Murray. So there's no way you could watch a Miami football game and walk out of that and say, Cam Ward loves ball. No way to do that. You will not know that until you meet him and get to know him. Same with all the other things. And this is the proprietary information that teams have to find out and that we don't know about. Well, I talked to some scouts who said that's not the same as, let me say this. I spent 45 minutes with Cam Ward in the boardroom. He walked out, and I just knew that young man was going to be special. There is a difference. And so if I were the Titans, just off of the Cam Ward tape, I would be considering him with the number 1 pick, because I don't have a quarterback, because I don't know if I can get Sam Darnold. I don't know that stuff. His tape is worthy of a first-round pick. I haven't watched Shedeur Sanders, so I can't tell you if he's the best or not. But again, he better love ball or I'm not taking him. He better realize there is a lot to work on, and he's got to be a leader. And again, I think with those leadership qualities, I can't describe how you know it when you spend time with somebody, other than the fact that I've done this for a long time. Like, I've worked in sports since 2008. So that is 17 years? I know good leadership when I see it. You know, one thing, my buddy's the athletic director at Louisville. I've told this story. When I was working with the women's basketball team, he was a graduate assistant for the entire athletic department. And he flew with us to the NCAA tournament in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We beat LSU. And I had no idea who this guy was. And we ended up in the national title game. So we spent an entire month, him traveling with our team. And by the end of the month, we were like best buddies. I really looked up to him. Again, graduate assistant, but I really looked up to him. And when he was kind of in the mix for the athletic director job, I was essentially campaigning on his behalf, doing all the radio hits and everything. And I kept saying one thing over and over again. I kept saying that I've known this guy since I was 19 years old. And I really looked up to him like an older brother when I was in college. And now I think I can look back in hindsight and say the reason that I looked up to him was because he has all the qualities that I wanted for myself. That's a leader. So when Cam Ward is in the building and meeting with the team, do they have that same feeling, which is, I want to follow this guy? And you won't know until you meet him. And the thing about me and you is we're not meeting with him. I think Will Levis, from that standpoint, turned a lot of teams off. 615-737-1025. Bunch of texts, bunch of phones on Cam Ward. So we will get to him. Again, we did the Jared's Film Room. We'll continue. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. So when you talk to these people and these personnel people around the league, do they feel like Cam Ward is justified as a 1-1 pick?
They do. Yeah, they do. A lot more people think he would be justified at 1-1 than Shador, quite frankly. And I found that as a surprise because I remain convinced that he is NFL ready. He's plug and play. You put him in there and he's going to go ahead and go to work and do a good job for you. I firmly believe that. And I don't care if his name was, Shador Franklin. That would be my belief just based off of watching him play. It's nothing to do with the last name. But quite frankly, I'm not a big Deion Sanders fan, but I think that he's capable. But it's not the same that I've gotten, especially here in the Senior Bowl. That's where it's really interesting. At the Shrine, there were more people who were leaning towards Shador being, a legit number one pick, but it's not as prevalent here in Mobile.
That was TD talking about, a lot of people think Cam Ward at 1-1, that would be justified. Again, I don't know if I can use number one pick on Cam Ward. He'd have to wow me, in person in order to use the number one pick on Cam Ward based on watching the tape, which I have done. Again, it's hard for me to make a comp when it comes to Cam Ward. Like I see a little Deshaun Watson, but he's not nearly as good of a pocket passer as Deshaun Watson. He's got a little Kyler, but he's not as athletic, but he's bigger than Kyler. Like, I think he's a better quarterback than Kyler, but Kyler's a much better athlete. I think he's Daniel Jones, but I think he's got a little bit more talent than Daniel Jones. I think he's got a little Anthony Richardson, but he doesn't have the measurables Richardson had. He's not as big as Richardson. He's not as fast as Richardson. His arm's not as good as Richardson's, but he's got more experience than Richardson. So let's get to your phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com on a Fireball Hot Take Friday at 615-737-1025. I highlighted this text message. And sometimes I'll just kind of during breaks, like go through the text messages and, whatever comes up. But then every now and then I kind of highlight one that I'm like, I want to make sure I hit on this. Wes in Clarksville says, so basically Cam Ward is another Will Levis. Levis could have been good too, but he wasn't. So I actually thought about this when I watched the tape because there are people that say, well, what's the difference between Cam Ward and Will Levis? People say Cam Ward's got a good arm. Will Levis has a good arm. People say that the problem with Cam Ward is he plays a little hero ball. Will Levis plays a little hero ball. We talk about Will Levis and his inability to read the defense. There's a little bit there with Cam Ward. So are they at all similar? And the answer is abso-freaking-lutely not. There is, again, I understand that they have some of the same issues, but they're different. Like Will Levis has trouble taking care of the ball because he's not accurate. Cam Ward has trouble taking care of the ball because Cam Ward will, try to do something stupid. Cam Ward is a fluid athlete who, for all the movement and everything that he does, like he can get hit, bounce off a guy, throw off of one foot, and it's just all fluid and natural and nothing's forced. With Levis, he's so robotic. He can't throw off platform. He can't throw under duress. Ward can. Again, with Levis, his issue, in my opinion, is that he's too muscle bound. He's too tight. Quite frankly, I think he's got too much anxiety when he's out there playing quarterback. With Ward, if anything, he's too loose. Does that make any sense? So I thought about that when I was watching it, people saying, oh, well, some of his issues are similar to Levis. And he may end up being a bust, just like Will Levis was a bust, but it's not going to be the same. And the other thing is I felt like watching Cam Ward, especially in the Cal game, where he led a great comeback, or the Louisville game, where they got a big lead, and then Louisville came back, and then Ward kind of separated in the end. That dude's heart rate, I would love to see his heart rate monitor from the game, because it does not spike at all. Whereas we know Will Levis, probably needs to be on, some football Prozac. Let's go to Steve, who's up next here on our program. Not that there's anything wrong with taking Prozac, but, just football Prozac. Steve is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, Jared, I'm calling in. I just got to say, I don't think it's between either of these two. The first pick for the Tennessee Titans needs to be Abdul Carter. Because you bring one of these QBs in, is that going to magically fix the O-line? Is that going to magically, bring talent onto the offense? I think you got to try to get a free agent QB signing and get one of these generational talents, which I believe Abdul Carter is. So for me, that's the first pick.
Okay, so here's what I would say to this. If your line sucked, and Steve, I want you to answer this question. Because
Sure.
you're saying that the line sucks, the coach sucks, the team sucks, so any quarterback that they draft number one would fail anyways, right?
I don't think he's set up for success if you draft him. I mean, you're the one always complaining about the guard.
Okay, so I'm complaining about the fact that they drafted a guard. But with that being said, if Joe Burrow was on the board, would you still want to take Abdul Carter?
I mean, it's a tough call.
No, it's not.
It's a very good
Steve,
question.
thank you for your call. It is not a tough call. If Joe Burrow was on the board, you would take Joe Burrow. This is why that's not a tough decision for me. So, again, I can understand that if Abdul Carter, grades out as an elite player, or Travis Hunter grades out as an elite player, and then, again, I've watched enough Cam Ward to tell you, he's a first-round pick. Like, he's a first-round talent at quarterback. I hesitate to compare him to the guys last year because I didn't study those guys at all last year. So I can't tell you if he's better than Bo Nix or not better than Bo Nix. But he is a first-round quarterback. If there are no other first-round quarterbacks, first-round graded quarterbacks, and you don't have a quarterback, you got to take a quarterback for the most part. But I do understand with the logic being that, hey, he's not an elite quarterback and the other guys are elite. But the idea that, well, the line sucks anyway, so don't draft a quarterback. You're telling me don't draft Joe Burrow? Don't draft Joe Burrow because the line sucks? No. You draft Joe Burrow, then you get the line right. That Cincinnati, for whatever reason, can't do. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll get back into your phones on Cam Ward because a lot of people have weighed in on Cam Ward. And so I don't want to leave those people hanging as well. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So I have watched the Cam Ward tape, and I am convinced Cam Ward is a first-round pick. I am also not convinced that Cam Ward is a 1-1 pick, and I'm not in love with him. I'm not banging the table for Cam Ward. I'm not expecting that they draft Cam Ward. I see it. I think there's a lot to work on when it comes to Cam Ward. There is talent. I mean, there is legit talent in Cam Ward. But there's a lot to work on. There's a lot of, I don't know, when it comes to Cam Ward. And when you're picking number 1 overall, you got to make sure you get it right or else you get fired. So Indy Ben texts in, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Indy Ben says, is this you more wanting the Titans to do the Darnold approach, so you're downplaying the beliefs that TD said from NFL personnel people that they'll then instead do what most quarterback desperate teams do by picking number 1? And so, again, TD said that he talked to personnel people in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and they seem convinced that the Cam Ward at number 1 will be the pick. And he says, is this you wanting to do the Sam Darnold thing? So I'm downplaying the beliefs of the personnel people when, again, Mike Borgonzi, unless there's something that happened that I don't know about, Mike Borgonzi's never met Cam Ward. Cam Ward wasn't at the Shrine Bowl. He wasn't at the Senior Bowl. He wasn't like, you're going to invest your future in somebody you've never met. And you can do it if you've watched the guy's college tape and you're like, holy crap, this guy, slam dunk, John Elway. But Cam Ward's not that. And so he says, are you downplaying what those people are telling TD because you want them to go the Sam Darnold route? And here's what I will say when it comes to what they will do, should do, might not do, whatever. I just want the Titans to be good. That's all I care about. I do not care about being right, about Darnold being the guy, and then Darnold lights it up here, and I can look at everybody. Because, Ian, if Darnold becomes the quarterback of the Titans, let's say Darnold becomes the quarterback of the Titans, and he's not a one-hit wonder, and he was what he was in Minnesota this year.
Okay.
There will be a lot of on this show, and you better be ready for it. You all better be ready. But again, I don't necessarily care about that as much as I care about the Titans being good. That's what I care about. And I will say right now, I do not think Sam Darnold is a franchise quarterback. But I'm also not talking about using the number 1 pick on Sam Darnold. If Cam Ward in these meetings leaves you with the impression, you being the Titans, with the impression that he is a franchise guy, like you want to get behind that guy, take him. And don't look back. But no, I mean, again, I'm not fully committed to the Darnold thing. I really am not. It seems to be the most likely approach, given that neither quarterback profiles as a franchise quarterback. I said I would not pound the table for Cam Ward. That doesn't mean he won't be a franchise quarterback, but I don't think either guy, and I haven't watched Sanders, but I don't think either guy profiles as a slam dunk franchise quarterback. And I saw what the Chiefs did when Mike Borgonzi was there, and they held the number 1 pick in a bad draft, and Andy Reid ended up trading for Alex Smith. And at that point, Alex Smith had been benched for Colin Kaepernick. They were moving on because he wasn't good enough in San Francisco. And Sam Darnold's kind of in a similar situation here. He's a starting quarterback. This year, he was a very good starting quarterback. But he's not Mahomes or Burrow, and he's never going to be Mahomes or Burrow. Now, I also think that there are 2 different plans here. Like, if you do walk out of these meetings and you do leave the combine and Cam Ward is your guy, that then would end any thought I would have of signing Sam Darnold, even if Darnold's a free agent. At that point, I would be willing to take Ward number 1. This is if I was convinced that Cam Ward was a good enough leader and would be willing to put the work in and would be coachable and all of those things. I would consider sitting Cam Ward so that he can learn those things and not learn them with the pressure of being the guy right away. So if I draft him, Sam Darnold's out because I'm not going to pay one guy $40 million and another guy $26 million this year. I'm not going to spend $66 million at the quarterback position when Sam's going to go be a starter somewhere else. That's what the Falcons did last year. I'm not doing that. So what I would do if I had decided that Cam Ward was the guy, and you have to decide at the combine if Cam Ward's the guy, because at the combine you will know if Minnesota's going to tag him or not, if he's a straight free agent or if you have to trade. And then you'll know after talking with Minnesota what it'll take to get him. And then you'll talk to his reps at the combine, and you'll know what it'll cost to sign him, or if he doesn't have any interest in being on your team, you'll know. And then you'll know as far as whether or not Cam Ward's your guy, because you will have watched all the tape. You will have spent time with him. You will have gotten to know him. And at that point, now it's time to start making some big boy decisions. And if I make the big boy decision after the combine that Cam Ward is my guy, I'm not going to sign Sam Darnold, but I would be signing a quarterback in free agency before the draft. And I would probably sign Daniel Jones to be the starting quarterback. You know, I prefer Mac Jones to Daniel Jones as a reclamation project, but Daniel Jones is a more mobile, more athletic quarterback than Mac Jones. But unlike Justin Fields, Daniel Jones is a pass-first quarterback. If I was thinking about drafting Jalen Milroe, which I'm not, but if I was thinking about drafting Jalen Milroe, then I'd think about Justin Fields. But my first call would be to Daniel Jones, because I can trust that Daniel Jones will learn the system, and they will have to change the system. Brian Callahan will for Cam Ward. But since Daniel Jones has had 10 different coordinators, I think, in his career, I think it'll be okay. And then my second choice would be Gardner Minshew to come in and be the QB1B. And my third choice would be Tyrod Taylor. And all three will have the understanding of, hey, you might be the backup, and you've got to be okay with that. You might be the starter. We'll sign you on March 13th, and you are the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans until at least April 25th or whatever day it is that the draft is. And then we'll decide. The guy that really I think would be a good choice to back up Cam Ward would be Marcus Mariota, but it's probably better for everybody involved that they not go that route just because of the history here with Marcus and how loved Marcus is. And if Cam Ward struggled, they'd be calling for Marcus, and you just don't want that. So my first call would be Daniel Jones. And I'd offer Daniel Jones $10 million. And I would want Daniel Jones, I'd tell him, I'm like, hey, man, there's a pretty good chance you're starting. Because I am a sit the quarterback kind of guy. And Cam Ward needs work. But no, this idea that these executives are telling TD they expect Cam Ward to be the first pick, I'm just saying, I don't know how they can feel that way when, again, Mike Borgonzi has never even met Cam Ward. Adam in Portland says, Amy Adams Strunk will draft Shedeur Sanders. If these two players are that close in comparison, they are going to go with Coach Prime's son. That will sell for the new stadium. It's all about the ticket sales and notoriety for this billion-dollar industry, and Deion Sanders' kid brings you that. So I think he is the pick. We are completely irrelevant, and he at least makes us interesting. Tell me that I am wrong. So I think Amy will be consulted on the pick. I do not think Amy will overrule Mike Borgonzi on the pick. And I don't think Chad Brinker will overrule Mike Borgonzi on the pick. I think the only way that Brinker overrules Borgonzi is if it's something like Borgonzi wants to sign Justin Tucker to be the kicker, and Brinker's like, no, we're not bringing somebody in here to be the kicker that is facing a lawsuit for sexual misconduct. Like, more of an adjudication type of override than a difference of opinion. If that makes any sense. So I think they'll consult Amy on the pick. I think they'll introduce Amy to both of them on their top 30 visits if Amy bothers to come. But I do not think Amy will overrule Mike Borgonzi at least the first year. And as much as we say, oh, it's about tickets and the new stadium, and it's about, I think Amy knows, like, I'm not going to solve problems by selling false hype. So I'm not even going to try to do that as far as I'm concerned. One texter says, honest question. If Jared Stillman was the general manager of the Titans, what would you do with the first pick? Well, I haven't watched all the tape. I've watched Cam Ward's tape. I'm not in love. I probably wouldn't take him with the first pick based off of what I know of Travis Hunter. Now, I'd have to watch all the Hunter tape. I'd have to watch all the Carter tape. I'd have to watch all the Shedeur Sanders tape. But what I would do with the first pick is, I would try to trade it. And I would hope that there would be a dance partner who'd be willing to give me a 1 in next year's draft and another top 100 pick this year. If I can get back into the third round and I can get a first rounder this next year, that's probably enough for me. Especially a team like the Patriots. I sell the Patriots on, you get your choice. Carter, Hunter. You don't have to worry about the other teams. You don't have to worry about, one of those guys being available. You get your choice. You've already got a starting quarterback, so you don't need next year's one. I'll do it for next year's one and give me a third. And I would love that. Not sure that's what they would do, but that would be my first choice. My second choice right now would be to sign Sam Darnold in free agency or trade the 35th pick for him, which I think you'd have to do. Give Darnold a 4-year contract that's really a 3-year contract, and with the number 1 pick, take Abdul Carter. That would be where I sit today. 615-737-1025. More your phones. Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us next on the program on a Fireball Hot Take Friday at Stillman & Company on 105 The Game. Cinnamon whiskey, that's right. I love Fireball Cinnamon whiskey. It goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There's no better way to ignite the night than to do so with ice cold Fireball Cinnamon whiskey. It is the weekend, and the best way to celebrate is when you're going out. Be the guy who orders up the Fireball shots. That's Fireball whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Hot Take. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. So I have watched the Cam Ward tape. And in watching the Cam Ward tape, I see it. First round pick. But I'm not sure I see franchise quarterback for me. I see a lot to work on. And I would be very nervous using the first overall pick on Cam Ward. Boy, he does some things well. He's got a lot to work on. He'd have to wow me in the meetings, in terms of his self-awareness, his knowledge of what he needs to work on, his ability for me to think that he would be able to do that, be able to do all of that. And then I'd have to be inspired by him. Now, when he walks out, to think that young man is a special young man, I'd have to have those feelings to feel comfortable taking the first overall pick with Cam Ward. Corey Curtis joins us now on the program from News 2. Corey, I see why they would say first round pick on Cam Ward. But when I watched Cam Ward, I came away thinking that's traditionally the 12th overall pick in a draft, the 16th overall pick in the draft, not the first overall pick in the draft. The Burrows and the Daniels and even Caleb Williams, etc. Where do you stand on Cam Ward?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. This is 2 weeks in a row. It's painful to say. I've watched a bunch of Cam Ward tape, and I like him. I do. He's athletic. He's strong. He's thick. So, I feel like he could stand up to some hits and not worry about injury quite so much. I think he can make a lot of throws. And I like him as a first-round pick. I just don't know that I love him as a top 3 or 4 pick. Because, if you're going to be picking in the top 3, 4, you've got to be sure that guy's a star. You can't hope he's a star. You have to be sure he's a star. And, am I sure he's a star? And not at this point. Does that mean I'm right? Well, hell no. How often have I been right? But that is my opinion, that I like him. Just right now, not enough to pick him at 1.
What would your shock level be if I told you that Cam Ward in 3 years is in the, I'm a fortune teller now, and he will be in the Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Daniels, Lamar Jackson group?
I guess it would depend on which team and situation that he got put with. If he gets put in a good situation, I think, I would not be as surprised. But if he went and played, for the Browns, I'll be surprised because they're the Browns. And
so what you're saying is if he pulls the Manning or the Burrow, where they go to bad organizations and they're still great because they're Manning and Burrow, you would be shocked if Cam Ward did that, but you wouldn't be as shocked if Cam Ward went to a good organization like the way Buffalo brought Josh Allen along and he became that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think if you put the whole thing on him early, I don't know how well it's going to go. But I think that's the way it is with most young quarterbacks. The Bears put too much on Caleb Williams early, and it didn't go great. And I still think the world of his talent, but they haven't been a very well-run team lately. So I think he's much the same way. A lot of these young quarterbacks, you get in and you get a good running game around them and a good offensive line, and it's amazing, what it can do. Jaden Daniels is, let's face it, he's a unicorn. And we know the situation that Patrick Mahomes went into. That doesn't take away from his greatness, but great coach, great team. He was set up for success. And the Eagles have done a great job of setting up, Jalen Hurts. And by the way, when Jalen Hurts first started, he didn't look great. That first year he was out there were a lot of questions if he was going to be a starting NFL quarterback. And, they put the right pieces around him. He improved and took a giant leap. So, maybe he's not the runner that Hurts is, but maybe he's more kind of in that mold that, he could struggle a little bit early, but in the right situation could really blossom pretty quickly.
Corey Curtis, News 2 is our guest. If you don't love Ward, and I don't think you do, and I don't know how much Sanders you've watched, but if you don't love Ward and you don't love Sanders, would you be interested in going the Sam Darnold route?
Sure, because there's not much better one right now. Find me a better route than Sam Darnold right now, because there really isn't a whole heck of a lot. Now, you could try to talk me into some stuff, and I'll say sure, because I think whoever it is probably still a short-term fix. But I think, Sam Darnold, if you can put good players around him, can put you in a position to execute your offense and win some games in advance of those players. I think that's one of the big things is having your quarterback be able to allow the players around him to make the plays that they need to make, because they didn't always get that, last year. So sure. I mean, price is obviously, going to matter. How much competition is there, for Sam Darnold? How long of a deal does he want? All those things are going to come into play. But from an experience standpoint and from a production standpoint, I think he has to be, intriguing. The other thing is, how good of a match does Brian Callahan think he is? There's not a ton of great options out there right now.
I think it's funny because last week when Mike Borgonzi got introduced as the general manager, I kept hearing him talk about solidifying the quarterback position. And then he talked about how they solidified the quarterback position in Kansas City with Alex Smith. Now, if you get the general manager from the Chiefs and you tell fans, what do you expect the quarterback? They're going to say, Mahomes. But again, he looked at Alex Smith as solidifying the quarterback position. It was a bad draft. When they had the pick in 2013, E.J. Manuel went in the first round. Geno Smith's the best quarterback in that draft. They didn't panic and take a quarterback. They traded for Alex Smith. So I ask you this question. Does Sam Darnold represent to you what solidifying the quarterback position would mean to a guy who says Alex Smith solidified the position in Kansas City?
I think so, because it's not fixing it permanently. It's just giving you someone who can run the offense. It's kind of like Ryan Tannehill did for them when they brought him in before. He solidified, the offense for 3 or 4 years. That's what they need until they can find a star at that position, which they unfortunately don't grow on trees. They need a guy they can go out and win some games with. And Sam Darnold showed on a really good team he could go out and win some football games. Alex Smith was not perfect by any means. You saw the difference in the Chiefs when they went from Smith to Mahomes, but he still took the Chiefs to the playoffs. He still was capable of putting up, he was over 4,000 yards, wasn't he? He had like the best season of his career his last year in Kansas City. So, he was not a schlock quarterback for them, but he was on a good team with a great coaching staff, but just showed in that situation he could produce. He wasn't an elite quarterback, but he could produce. And I think that's solidifying the position. That's not saying, we have our star, we have our quarterback for the next 20 years. It means we're okay at that position. We can look at other spots.
Okay, Corey Kerr's with us. Let's say that you don't love Ward, you don't love Sanders. Minnesota tags Darnold. They'll trade him for 35, and you can give Darnold a 4-year deal that's really a 3-year deal that pays him about $40 million a year. Is that too rich for your blood?
I just hate giving away the draft picks. I really, really do. So Minnesota tagged him.
Yep.
But you can't get him on a trade without an extension. Or
you could if you wanted him to play on the tag, but it would be a la L'Jarius Sneed last year where they work the deal out and then they get him.
I'd feel better if that pick was 50 instead of 35 as well.
Unfortunately, that pick is with L'Jarius Sneed's knees in Kansas City.
Yeah. I'm not ready to pull the trigger on it yet, but I will say if you do that, you're in position to trade down from one and get a bunch of picks. And you could absorb that blow. If you can make that trade down and get more picks, it makes it much easier to absorb that blow. So I would
Here's
say
what makes me nervous about that, though, Corey. What makes me nervous about that idea is if you don't love Ward and you don't love Sanders, what are the odds that somebody really does and is going to give you a haul to trade for number one?
Yeah. Well, you may not get the haul that teams have gotten in the past, but if you can trade down to 3 and add, traditionally you would get what, like 2 2s and 2 1s and like a 2 and a 3 or something.
If you were trading from 1 to where?
3.
Oh, if you were trading from 1 to 3 in a good draft with what, like, say there's a elite quarterback, you're probably looking at next year's first is probably what you're getting. So you're getting 1, 3, and next year's, or you're getting 3 and next year's 1, and they'll throw in a third and you'll send a fifth kind of thing.
What if you could get Giants pick at 3 and then their second? I think I would take that deal if I knew I was also getting Darnold.
Well, because now you're replacing, the 35th pick with the 34th pick, which is what the Giants have. So
that's great. So now I've got that pick. I'm still going to get the guy I want probably at 3 because I'm either going to get Hunter or Carter, and I've got a quarterback, and I've still got my second round pick now.
I think I would do that. I also think it's a lot more palatable for the Giants to do that so that they get to pick which of the 2 quarterbacks they get, because it sounds like they're going to take a quarterback. So that may be realistic. I really want the Giants first rounder next year.
Well, that would be great, but I don't think – I think I want to trade out of it enough where I wouldn't have to get it.
Here's the other thing, too. The one team whose first rounder I actually circled think you might be able to get, I think you might be able to get New England's first rounder next year. Like just straight up 4 for 1 in next year's first. That way they get whatever player they want.
Are they drafting
and I would do
Hunter
it.
or Hunter?
My guess would be Vrabel's going to draft Hunter.
Okay. Yeah.
And Vrabel's going to play him at receiver.
Hunter at 4.
But you might not.
But you might not. You're right. I mean, it all depends what the Browns do. Are the Browns drafting a quarterback?
I mean, I think they probably are. Okay. They've got the owner who drafted Johnny Manziel. Like this guy, I don't know if this guy could pass up Shedeur Sanders. I'm not a Shedeur guy. Again, I haven't watched tape, so I can't. No. I'm not interested in Shedeur. But this guy, I mean, I think this guy would lose his freaking pants over drafting Shedeur Sanders the same way he lost his pants over Johnny Football, the same way he lost his pants over Deshaun Watson.
This guy loses his pants a lot. I mean, was he wearing shorts all the time?
Well, he had a legitimate starting quarterback who he took number 1 overall, and he dumped him so that he could get the worst quarterback, both from a moral standpoint and, Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take?
You know, everybody is back in love with the running back position, and I'm a running backs guy, so I'm all about it. But the truth be told, Derrick Henry didn't take the Ravens any further than they'd gone before with Lamar Jackson. And to this point, Saquon Barkley, who has been utterly sensational, hasn't taken the Eagles somewhere they didn't go before with Jalen Hurts, right? They've been there before. So I don't know that this people who think that NFL owner or NFL GMs are going to fall all over themselves for running backs now is going to happen quite the way they think it is, because the quarterbacks still drive the bus. Now, there aren't the quarterbacks in this year's draft, but they still drive the bus, and they are the ones that get teams to the big game.
Corey Curtis does not sound like he's drafting Ashton Jeanty with the number 1.
I love Ashton Jeanty, and if I was a team where he was the missing piece, I would love to take him. But I'm just saying that he's a complementary piece, okay? He's not – they don't get you there. They just don't. At least they haven't in a long time.
Corey Curtis, as always, on our program. Corey, great stuff. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Corey Curtis. So what are the league executives, now that they're all at the Senior Bowl, saying about the number 1 pick? We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
Does he get outside of the top 5?
I don't think so. I think there's too many needy teams at quarterback, and these two, Cam and Mr. Sanders there, are the only two that are worthy of a first-round pick. And everybody will do their homework, but teams, the Giants, if you slip past Tennessee and Cleveland, there's too many teams in that top 10 that need a quarterback, and these are the two most viable options this year.
That was Rick Spielman. That was Rick Spielman on his With the First Pick podcast. And he probably went with Mr. Sanders there because he probably forgot Shador's name. These old general manager types want to do. But he says, look, I think they're going to go in the top 5 because that's just the nature of the position. Not that they're any good, but I just think they're going to go in the top 5. There was an article in The Athletic today. Jeff Howe, who's one of their senior insiders, wrote a story, and apparently league executives at the Senior Bowl in Mobile absolutely hate this quarterback class. Quote, over the past month, numerous front office sources echoed a common refrain to The Athletic. They would not rank any of the draft prospects ahead of the 6 quarterbacks who were selected in the first round last year. One executive said this week, quote, I would guess 90% of the people here at the Senior Bowl would feel that way. So, they're saying, hey, these guys would be 7th in last year's class. Behind Caleb, behind Jaden, behind Drake, behind J.J. McCarthy, behind Michael Penix, and behind Bo Nix. 7th. I believe Spencer Rattler went on day 3. And that was the, next quarterback after the 12th pick, which was Bo Nix. It continues in the story saying, quote, to be fair, it's entirely possible to draft Ward or Sanders or anyone else in April and develop them into long-term starters. A good situation matters, just as it does when perceived general talents are failed by bad organizations. But if teams are playing the odds with the current class, there seems to be more skepticism around the league than usual. So I'm kind of reminded of something Floyd told me years ago, which was that when he went to ESPN, he got fired from the Titans, and he spent 2 years at ESPN, and then he went to New England. And when he was at ESPN, he was on NFL Live and Sports Center and all those shows. And he said that when it came draft time, the one thing he felt like all they cared about at ESPN were quarterbacks and team needs. He's like, that's all they cared about. What do the Cowboys need? And then quarterbacks. Quarterback. And so it is not a surprise that all the podcasts, all the TV shows, when you turn on the TV and they talk draft, what are they talking? Quarterback. But it just seems like the sentiment is that these guys are not franchise quarterbacks. And in 2022, there was a big sentiment that, hey, these quarterbacks are going to get bumped up. This is not a good class, but these quarterbacks are going to get bumped up. I looked at Mel Kiper Jr.'s first mock draft. The first mock draft is when Mel's really just going off the tape, and then he kind of starts to get directed and redirected by the combine, and then what he hears from this guy and what he hears from that guy, and it's crazy how his first mock draft sometimes is more accurate than his last mock draft. But I looked up his first mock draft of 2022, and he had Malik Willis going with the 11th pick to the Washington Commanders. And he even wrote at the time that Malik Willis wasn't worth the 11th pick, but got to have quarterback. Jordan Reed had a mock draft that had Malik Willis going 2nd. But again, nobody really did take a quarterback in 2022. Pittsburgh took Kenny Pickett at 20th overall. If they really, really loved Kenny Pickett, don't you think they would have tried to trade up? So why didn't the Lions take a quarterback when the common belief at the time was that they needed a quarterback? Why didn't the Giants, with a new regime, and Daniel Jones, who that offseason had his 5th-year option declined, why did they not take a quarterback with 2 picks at the top of the first round? Because my guess is at that point in time, those guys were not willing to commit themselves to quarterbacks they didn't love. The Titans took Malik Willis 86th in the draft. John Robinson went on the midday show at training camp and said, yeah, we're taking a shot here. And I'm fine with taking a shot with the 86th pick. I'm not okay taking a shot with the 6th pick. Yeah, we'll take a shot here at 86. So what I think I'm trying to decipher right now is between, well, the quarterbacks are always going to get bumped up, and this year will end up being no different. And Cam Ward's going to go number 1 to Tennessee, and Shedeur Sanders is going to go number 3 to the Giants, even though these guys are not as good as Bo Nix was, who went 12th last year. And 2022, where all the teams, even the ones that needed quarterbacks, were like, no, we're going to roll with Daniel Jones instead. No, we're going to roll with Jared Goff, who helped us land the number 2 pick in the draft. We're going to do that instead. We're going to be okay doing it this way. You see what I'm saying? Like the Cleveland Browns at that point in time traded 3 first-round picks in order to acquire Deshaun Watson. The Texans had now rid themselves of Deshaun. They had Davis Mills at quarterback. They had the 3rd overall pick. They didn't jump on these quarterbacks, not because they wanted to see what they had in Davis Mills, but they didn't jump on these quarterbacks because they knew they weren't good. And so I am kind of a little torn here. Like, I watched Cam Ward's tape. There is stuff on the tape to like. I think it kind of matches up with what Blake Bedingfield said at paulkaharski.com. And again, I said yesterday on the program, I think the Titans need to go and make up for the mistake John Robinson made by firing Blake Bedingfield, and they need to bring Blake Bedingfield back. Because I read Blake's stuff in hindsight, like, not here's Blake talking about where the Titans got it wrong, but here's what Blake thinks the Titans should do. And then reading it after the fact, I'm like, God, Blake was right about a lot of stuff. And he is the guy that convinced him to draft Derrick Henry. So I will bang the table that I believe in Blake Bedingfield, and I think he belongs back with the Titans. But when he says he's got a first-round grade on Cam Ward, but kind of more of a later first-round grade, I see it. Again, is Joe Shane going to risk his career on a late first-round quarterback who, again, wouldn't be in the top 6 last year? And I don't know about that. That's where I'm trying to figure all this out. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program if you want to weigh in. By the way, there are some comments that were made that, holy crap, everybody's making a big deal about this, apparently, except for me. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Did you know that Hiller has been in business since 1990 and his family owned and operated? And Jimmy Hiller was recently named amongst the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly cares for his team and his clients. Hiller takes care of the customer on every job, every time, and they stand behind their work with 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. And again, I know this because I use Hiller at my home. If Hiller has a customer who's not happy, they'll make it right. Learn more at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds of Vols and Vandy. Hiller, call that fixed truck today.
Yeah, it's really interesting. A lot of these personnel people down here, they firmly believe that Cam Ward is going to be the pick. There are some people who, they keep asking me, hey, are they going to trade down? You think they're going to trade down? And that quote that was boosted out of our local media session with Chad Brinker in regards to generational talent, that really has put a big influence on a lot of the thoughts and beliefs from people across the league, because that's one of the first things that I continue to see come up whenever someone comes to me or talk about the Titans, or I just ask someone else what they think.
That was TD on the show yesterday, and I gotta say, these Chad Brinker generational talent comments are being so completely overblown. It is ridiculous. Like, you can even hear it where TD's like, yeah, our little local media session, that one quote that got pulled out. A lot of people are coming up to me at the Senior Bowl, and they're like, generational talent, generational talent, generational talent. According to Jeff Howe in The Athletic, quote, it also can't be ignored that Titans president of football operations, Chad Brinker, recently said, quote, that they, quote, won't pass on a generational talent with the first pick, end quote. Considering the general lack of excitement over the quarterback class, it's conceivable Brinker was referring to a player at another position, perhaps Colorado corner/receiver Travis Hunter or Penn State linebacker Abdul Carter. Guys, that's not what Chad Brinker meant. I was there. In fact, I have the audio on my phone right now. I want to play it, but I'm not allowed to. But I want to. I want to play it for you, but I can't. And in fact, maybe this ends up being a good thing for the Titans, that everybody, Adam Schefter tweeted it, trying to act like Mr. NFL. Adam Schefter tweeted it the way one of these aggregate Twitter handles would do, which is really beneath Adam Schefter, but Adam Schefter will do a lot of things that are beneath Adam Schefter. So, again, he put it out there, and now everyone's like, generational talent. I mean, does that mean they're taking Abdul Carter? That's not what Chad Brinker meant. I was there. What he meant was, look, if Lawrence Taylor is in the draft, I'm not going to pass on Lawrence Taylor. I want a bunch of extra picks. I want to trade back, but I'm not passing on Lawrence Taylor, and I'm not passing on Joe Burrow in order to garner a bunch of extra picks, which is actually a really good thing. Because the thing I've learned about some hard-headed executives in the NFL is once they're determined to do something, there is nothing that will dissuade them from not doing it. That's why when the L'Jarius Sneed stuff was going down, I'm like, the Titans are going to end up getting him, because Ran Carthon is determined to get him. And so Minnesota got a whiff of the medicals, and they said, no, we're not interested. But Rand was determined to get L'Jarius Sneed no matter what, so he was going to do it anyway. And he did. And then L'Jarius Sneed got hurt. And so a lot of hard-headed people won't let, facts change what it is that they really, really want. And what Chad Brinker was saying was, yeah, I mean, I'd love to have 30 picks in the next 3 drafts and 12 in the top 100. But I'm not going to pass on Lawrence Taylor if Lawrence Taylor is there. It was not an indication that he thinks that Travis Hunter is Deion Sanders or that Abdul Carter is J.J. Watt. That's not what it meant. And yet this might actually end up being a good thing for the Titans, because now a bunch of people in the league heard it and they're like, oh man, maybe they're not going to take a quarterback. Maybe they are going to take Abdul Carter, and then maybe that gets the Patriots all worried and they make a trade. Maybe that gets the Giants all worried, they make a trade. But again, he was just saying, like, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to just stockpile picks for the sake of stockpiling picks. I want picks, but I'm not going to turn away from Lawrence Taylor. One texter says, wouldn't you rather have the best available player over a quarterback that isn't good? When you make it that simplistic, yes. But I think it's a lot more complicated than that, which is, if Cam Ward is a first-round quarterback, even if he is not a top of the first-round quarterback, even if he is more Michael Penix, Bo Nix, than he is Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Wouldn't you rather have the best player in the draft? Well, who's going to be your quarterback? So if it's not Sam Darnold, then you have to have a quarterback, and he is a first-round quarterback. Well, how do you get him? You take him, and then nobody else can get him. So, I mean, look, I watch a tape. I'm not in love with him. If it were up to me right now, what I know of Travis Hunter, I would take over them. Now, I haven't watched Travis Hunter tape. Again, if Travis Hunter is going to be a corner, I'm not interested. I am not interested in a corner with the number 1 pick in the 2025 NFL. Now, if Travis Hunter is going to be a receiver, I'm interested. If not, I'll be picking Abdul Carter. But it's not as simple as, well, Ward ain't that good. Ward's a first-round caliber quarterback. He's just not a top of the first-round caliber quarterback in a traditional draft, and therein lies the problem. One texter says, were you surprised by the Ward tape, or was he what you expected? You know, that is a very good question when it comes to watching the Cam Ward tape. And I will tell you why. He probably is what I thought in terms of where I didn't think I'd watch it and say, this guy sucks. I wasn't sure of that, but I didn't think I'd watch that. But I didn't come away thinking, good God, this guy's awesome, which is how I felt about Anthony Richardson, by the way. But I think what I was a little surprised by was just how fluid of an athlete Cam Ward is. Like there is and I hate saying this because you say this and then it's like, Mahomes. But there's a little bit of that where Cam Ward can throw off balance and it can still go 25 yards and hit a guy in the hands. There is a little bit of that. Like Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, cannot throw off platform the way Cam Ward can. Now, Cam Ward can't run like Lamar Jackson. But, I mean, I do feel like Cam Ward, those little just the off-platform, off-balance, feet not set, still puts it to the outside hash 18 yards down the field and hits the receiver. I did like that. He had a touchdown pass in the Louisville game that he threw to the back of the end zone where he was off balance and he was running and it went like 45 yards and I was like, holy freaking crap. So there was some of that with Cam Ward. Chad Withrow will join us an hour early because of the President's Day. Chad Withrow will join us from Outkick next. His thoughts on all of this. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. It is 5 o'clock. Well, I should say 5 o'clock. It is 4 o'clock on this Friday because the Predators are coming up at 6 o'clock. So Chad Withrow joins us early from Outkick Today, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Chad, 1 week from today, we will be in beautiful New Orleans, Louisiana, or at least I hope it'll be beautiful in New Orleans, Louisiana when we're there 1 week from today. Radio Row at the Super Bowl. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's time to start looking at the forecast, Jared. It's that time of the week where we can start looking at what it's going to be like weather-wise when we're in New Orleans. I have not peeked at a forecast yet, but like you, I hope that it is beautiful while we're there.
By the way, I was a little surprised that there's not a lot of stuff going on in New Orleans outside of the Super Bowl while we're there. There's not like a Pelicans game. There's not like there's just, I'm a little disappointed with that, but
it is not my favorite Super Bowl location. And I've been going to these since the end of the 2004 Super Bowl. So Super Bowl 40 in Detroit was my first one. So Detroit's a weird first Super Bowl to attend. First and foremost, has not been back since. But this is my second trip to New Orleans for a Super Bowl. I've been to Sugar Bowls there. I've been to some other events, but it is not the best host city. The NFL loves it, but I don't really get it. New Orleans is a pretty small city compared to some other places the game goes to when you really get down to it. So it's not my favorite, Jared. And you're right. There's not a ton going on next week.
By the way, I went to the women's Final Four in New Orleans in 2013, and Louisville was in the national title game that year. And I was 23 years old and got so New Orleans'd out that I won and lost. Like, I think I won like $2,000 playing blackjack and lost all of it. Yeah, after having won it, is my only New Orleans
Did you
story.
lose all of it just spending it on Bourbon Street, or did you actually lose it gambling while at the casino?
No. I lost it trying to win $5,000.
I got you.
Or however much I was trying to, the chase. Which, it feels bad when you lose $2,000, but when you started with, basically nothing and you get up to $2,000, it is one thing. All right, enough shooting the breeze. Okay, to the Titans. So I watched the Cam Ward tape, Chad, and after watching the Cam Ward tape, I walked away saying, look, I think Cam Ward's a first-round prospect. I see like a little Deshaun Watson in his game. I think Deshaun probably is a better passer than Cam was, but kind of in the same way. I see a little bit of I see a little bit of like a poor man's Anthony Richardson, from the standpoint that he doesn't have Richardson's size, arm strength, or athletic ability, but he's got.
By the way, if
more
he is a
experience.
poor man's Anthony Richardson, Jared, then that is a do not draft.
But I'm talking
If
about
that is
from
the
a
case,
talent
because Anthony
standpoint.
Richardson's been terrible.
But I'm talking
keep
about
going.
from like a pure athletic talent
you.
standpoint. I think I see maybe a little Deshaun Watson in there, not a ton of Deshaun Watson, and I certainly don't have, him dragon slaying Alabama the way that Deshaun Watson did. I'm convinced he's a first rounder. I just don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I don't think he's a top of the first round guy. And if I was Mike Borgonzi, Chad, I'm not sure I would risk my career on Cam Ward. You've watched a lot of Cam Ward. What do you make of Cam Ward? And if he is the best in this class, is it worth just taking him because he is a first round prospect and moving on from there?
Yeah, I need to watch more of him, honestly, to really gauge my full opinion on it. Here's what I think about Cam Ward. You mentioned some comps there. I don't want to set him up for failure by saying that he's Pat Mahomes, but I think just from an innovation of when he gets moving a little bit, he doesn't have the arm slots that Patrick Mahomes throws from and that level of it. But I've seen him make some throws in big games at Miami that made me say, wow, where I didn't know. He's throwing across the body sometimes. He's rolling left and throwing it on a line to someone in the only spot it could go. So he did make a lot of wow throws at Miami. I'm not sure if he's first pick material or not, but I do think that if Mike Borgonzi or Chad Brinker or whoever is going to make the final call or whatever the decision is going to be, if they decide to trade back and they get a haul, it definitely buys all of them time, right? Like you mentioned, the pressure of drafting the first overall pick quarterback is so high because you are declaring this guy has the keys to the castle. He is our franchise quarterback, and everyone gets to judge him from the first game on. And if he's not very good, it's going to go downhill quickly. And if he's showing promise, well, great. You bought yourself some time there. But if you just continue to kick the can down the road and acquire a bunch of picks, which, by the way, the Titans need a bunch of picks, if they decide to do that, I do think that it buys this regime more time as they can go and get in a fill-in quarterback for the time being, a bridge quarterback, so to speak, someone that can come in and be decent. And Matt Hasselbeck, when he was with the Titans, someone that comes in and gets the Titans back to some level of respectability while you continue to look for that big-time quarterback prospect in the draft.
What do you make of trading back and trying to still get one of the better players? And I say this because, you know, Ian Rappaport came out yesterday and said that he thinks both the Browns at 2 and the Giants at 3 are taking a quarterback. So if that's the case, I mean, that would be great news for the Titans, in my opinion, because then you can trade with the Giants at 3 and you could say, hey, this way you jump Cleveland and you get the quarterback you want. And I would assume that would be Cam Ward. You get the quarterback you want, and then Cleveland is stuck with the second quarterback if they have to take a quarterback, and you're still not dropping out of the Carter-Hunter range at that point. I do wonder when we talk about trade backs, I keep wondering, okay, where do you trade to is going, in my opinion, to decide. And I wouldn't rule out the Patriots at 4 as a trade back candidate. They could deal next year's first round pick to move up to number 1 to get the best player in the draft, knowing that they won't need next year's first round pick for a quarterback. So I do wonder when it comes to trading back, kind of what would your strategy be right now if you were the Titans?
Yeah, I like the scenario of the Giants, you know, coming up to get, let's say it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, whoever it is, to make sure they get their quarterback. I keep thinking about, man, Mike Vrabel drafting Jalen Carter for his first pick certainly makes a lot of sense for that to be the next move for the Patriots.
You mean Abdul Carter?
Sorry, yeah. What did I say?
Jalen Carter.
I got Jalen Hurts on my mind. I've been thinking a lot about Jalen Hurts.
Well, you said Jalen Carter, and I was like, dude, Mike Vrabel and Jalen Carter together, that'd be pretty nasty.
Yeah. So, look, I've been thinking and working on the show for today about Jalen Carter, so that's what I was saying about that. Anyways, I think that's a good spot for the Patriots, right? If that's their guy, if they wanted to come up and get the best player, and he's the best player to them, that's a possible trade-up option. I mean, if you're the Titans, like, is there a team even further down the line? Like, how far are you willing to drop to ensure that you're getting these? I mean, what's the number, 30 picks or whatever it is that Mike Borgonzi threw out, and you want to get so many of them in the first 3 rounds? Like, the way to do that is to find someone that's willing to give up everything in the draft to trade up to number 1 to draft one of these quarterbacks. And that might not be a team that's sitting there at 3 or 4. So, look, there's a lot of possibilities for the Titans, and there's not a lot of ways to really screw it up unless you draft a terrible quarterback.
So,
right? I mean, if you trade back and get more picks, you're gonna land on somebody that's gonna be good, and then you're gonna get multiple picks. So somebody's gonna turn out okay, you would think, if this group knows what they're doing at all. But Jared, it's the risk reward. If you stick and pick at number 1 and draft a quarterback, if that quarterback is awful, then you've set the franchise back even more.
Well, I guess I ask this, which is, if you're the Titans and if you don't love one of these quarterbacks, because I think Titan fans see the traditional number 1 pick trades, and I'm like, if you're the Titans and you don't love one of these quarterbacks, what is the expectation that the other teams will love these quarterbacks too? I mean, it's not like the Titans don't need a quarterback. In 2016, they were able to make that trade with the Rams because they had drafted Marcus Mariota with the 2nd overall pick the year before. But I'm not sure I've really ever seen a draft where there's like a superstar generational talent and a team that has the pick doesn't need a quarterback and still trades out of it, at least in the modern era. So if Cam Ward is good-ish, but not good enough for you, why would he be good enough for the Giants, or why would he be good enough for the Browns or one of those teams?
Well, everybody's got their own flavor that they like. And I can't pretend to know what the Giants are doing at times. They've made some questionable decisions. I mean, it's not beyond one of these teams to just have a bad evaluation on someone, that they see something in a prospect that the other team doesn't see, and vice versa. I mean, the Titans could be looking back years from now and saying, oh my goodness, we traded away the chance to draft Cam Ward, the great Cam Ward, who comes in the league and is an MVP at some point. I mean, these are the risks that you're taking one way or the other. But it's like the old adage goes. I mean, it takes one team. If there's one team out there that loves, and I mean loves, one of these two quarterbacks, you could get a lot in return if you're the Titans, if you don't love one of these two quarterbacks, which we don't know. And if the Titans and Mike Borgonzi are good at their jobs, by the way, we're never going to know up until draft day, right? We're not going to know what they think about the quarterbacks. We're not going to know what they really think about trading back for the picks. They're going to keep all their cards close to the chest, and they're not going to let us know anything or tip anything that's out there. So,
well, aren't you going to know though?
Aren't
you going to know though if they sign Tyrod Taylor to be the quarterback in free agency that they're taking a quarterback?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, we thought we knew with the Falcons when they signed Kirk Cousins, and then they drafted Michael Penix Jr. So no, I mean, look, you could still sign some veteran and then decide, well, we couldn't get a trade partner. We're going to draft a quarterback also. It's not highly likely, but it's possible to do that. So no, I don't think so. I think we're going to get little signs here and there that's going to tip it a little bit. But again, I want to go back to having an organization that plays chess and not checkers. And I don't want the Titans to get too cute for their own good or any of that. But I want them to be good at their jobs. And I'm hopeful. The more I hear from Mike Borgonzi, who's a very good talker, unlike the last guy who was in that spot, very good talker, very good at communication. I'm hopeful that he's going to be a great GM, and this thing's going to get back in the right direction.
Chad Withrow with us on the program. Would you, just what you saw in college, I know you haven't studied him to an extent, would you take J.J. McCarthy over Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders? Because there was another report today that came out in The Athletic where some of these league executives told Jeff Howe they would take the entire quarterback class last year ahead of the two quarterbacks this year.
I would not. I am not a J.J. McCarthy guy. I do not see it. I thought he was a fine quarterback for what Michigan asked of him. I thought he did a great job in that national championship season, obviously, but I don't see him as some dynamic NFL prospect. So I think everybody else, based on what we saw this season, those first-round picks, yeah, I would take all of them. Penix, Bo Nix, obviously Daniels. I mean, go down the list. I'm taking those guys over Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders because we've already seen also a year of what they can do. Not J.J. McCarthy. Coming in with the injury also. I honestly, I think I would take both Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders over J.J. McCarthy.
Really? What about Penix and Nix?
Yeah, Penix and Nix, like I said, I those guys are better than Ward. I love Michael Penix Jr. as a prospect. So I would take those guys as a prospect. Now, again, I've got the beauty of hindsight where I've seen them play for a year. Would I have taken Bo Nix over Cam Ward a year ago if I had not seen Bo Nix play in the NFL? If they were both coming out? Probably not. But Bo Nix surprised me because he's teamed up with Sean Payton in Denver, and it's the perfect fit. So I'm taking Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr. I'm taking those first-round quarterbacks from last year over Sanders or Ward, with the exception of J.J. McCarthy, who I would put behind both Ward and Sanders.
More with Chad Withrow coming up. It's the hot seat next. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chad Withrow with us from Outkick, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So, Chad, do you have a thought, or do you want to go right to the hot seat?
You know how much I love the hot seat. Let's get to it.
Number one, should the Buffalo Bills fire Sean McDermott for not being able to get over the Kansas City hump once again?
No, I think that would be a mistake. And I think that it would, I don't think it would help the locker room. I think the Bills have something good with their culture and in that locker room and Josh Allen leading them. And I don't think they're in need of a disruptor of that. And firing Sean McDermott would do that. Now, look, Sean McDermott has got to prove that he can get through this game. And he's not done that yet. I get it. But I don't think rocking the apple cart to that level would be wise for the Bills, especially considering, I mean, it's just so tough when you look at that conference right now with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson and with Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. Burrow had, an MVP type year, but his defense was terrible this year. Cincinnati's going to be back. It's a crazy good AFC right now, and the Bills are crazy good, and they just could not find a way to get over the hump again in this one, but I'm not firing the coach because of that.
Number two, why does Steve Spagnuolo get overlooked for head coaching opportunities?
We talked about this with Armando Salguero of Outkick yesterday, and he was very careful to not say too much. But we asked him the same question, Jared, and he said, there are just some guys who are great coordinators and assistant coaches that leave a really bad taste in everyone's mouth as a head coach. And that seems to be the knock on Spagnuolo. He's been great. Hutton and I were arguing, if you're the AFC West, let's say you're the Raiders with a job opening. If you want to affect that division, that is great. Go hire Spags away from a division rival to be the head coach, because he's been so good as their defensive coordinator. So you're getting a good defensive mind in as your head coach, and you're taking away your rival's defensive brain. So that would seem like a good move, right? But he's 63 years old. And apparently it's not an interviewing problem. It's just his situation in St. Louis when he was there was so bad that it seems like teams are just kind of out on him as a head coach and see him as a great coordinator that's not head coaching material.
Number three, your thoughts on Bill Haslam's new WNBA bid with the Tennessee Summit?
If Caitlin Clark had not just had this explosion into women's basketball and to the WNBA in interest and viewership is up and everything else, I would kind of treat this like, it's kind of like the soccer team in town, which I'm like, hey, it's great. You got an MLS team, but I don't care about the MLS. I'm not going to do backflips over anything with it. That would be my reaction to a WNBA team. But when you put Bill Haslam and Peyton Manning and Tim McGraw and Faith Hill and Candace Parker into this ownership group that's clearly going to be led by Haslam, who already owns a team, look, I think it's great. I love the name. I love the tribute to Pat Summitt. And if you think about Tennessee as a girls and women's basketball state, there's not one that's better. I mean, Indiana is a basketball state. Kentucky's a basketball state. Kansas is a basketball state. Certainly UConn is known for women's basketball, but I don't think of Connecticut as a great girls basketball state. Because of the influx of Pat Summitt and all the success early on with the Lady Vols when women's basketball was just becoming a thing in this country, and then all of the high school programs across the state that tried to emulate the Lady Vols and what Pat Summitt was doing, Tennessee's got great girls basketball. It's got great culture already ingrained in it. I think it's a slam dunk, Jared. I didn't think I'd be saying that if you told me this a year or two ago, but I think it's going to be great for the city. I love it. I hope it happens.
By the way, how about Michaela Blake's at Vanderbilt yesterday with an SEC record, 53 points, and a freshman record of 53 points in Vandy's 99-86 win over Florida yesterday. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, look, if Vandy has somebody on their team that's dropping 53 a night, I will be paying more attention to Vandy women's basketball.
I'll be, and yes. And look, here's what I'll say about both Vandy teams right now. This is the way it should be. This is what Vandy can do. They're not a great historic program in either men's or women's basketball, but they're good enough, and they're in a city where they can have success. They have some NIL money. They've got a historic venue. What we're seeing right now with, I think the Vandy men last I saw were going to be maybe a 7 seed. in the tournament, or 9, somewhere around there, projected right now. Like, this is great. This is where Vandy basketball could live. I'm not expecting them to go to Final Fours or, be the number 1 team in the country consistently or anything like that. But they should be a good rival to Tennessee. Those games should be competitive. We know when I grew up, a lot of times it was Tennessee would kill Vandy at Thompson Bowling Arena, and Vandy would squeak out a win at Memorial Gym. But the games were always great and highly anticipated. This is what's good for the area in college basketball. I think it's great for Vanderbilt. They found 2 really good coaches, and they've got some stars on both teams. So I know you were there last week, but I mean, tip of the hat to both coaches and what they've been able to accomplish.
So it's funny that you say that, because my question was going to be, my next hot seat question for you was going to be, how much respect has Vanderbilt earned from Chad Withrow in the last year? And I'm talking all encompassing Vandy football, basketball, women's basketball, etc.
Yeah, a lot more than I had a year ago, for sure. I mean, think about a year ago, Clark Lee was kind of limping in to year number 4 off a terrible season. The basketball program held on to Jerry Stackhouse probably too long. You're bringing in a guy that you liked in Byington but didn't know a lot about it. Women's basketball has been pretty irrelevant for a while. Baseball has slipped under Tim Corbin, and that was their calling card for so long. So things look pretty bleak. But it's amazing, Jared, what happens when you invest a little bit of money, and I know they're improving facilities, but when you hire the right coaches. And I think Shea Ralph is the right coach. I certainly think Mark Byington is the right coach. I think Clark Lee is the right coach for what Vanderbilt needs right now. And he's found a good formula for football to be pretty successful. And by Vanderbilt standards, very successful to get to a bowl game. So, I mean, look, if you're buying stock right now, I would certainly buy stock in the doors. It's headed in the right direction. So I've got a lot more respect than I did before. Now let's sustain it, right? Let's not. What you don't want to have is Mark Byington leaves after 1 year to go somewhere else, or something crazy like that happens, and then it sets you back even more. Make the commitment, continue with it, and let's keep this thing rolling. I know that's what Vanderbilt fans want.
Arch Manning has opened as the Heisman Trophy favorite, according to ESPN Bet, at plus 750. Are you buying or selling Arch Manning for the Heisman next year?
I'm selling for the Heisman right now. It's tough for me to go with, this was like the talk with Nico a year ago. Oh, he's 5th in the Heisman odds coming into the season. And that was just simply because Josh Heupel scores a lot of points. His offenses are really good, and this guy's a highly sought after quarterback prospect. We still don't know enough about Arch Manning as a player in the SEC for me to say that he's the Heisman Trophy favorite. So if you ask me right now today, without really seeing him lead the team in big games yet, I'm selling on Arch Manning.
I will tell you, I think I just need to see Arch play more before I can get all, like, people will text in and say, Arch needs to be the number 1 pick next year and the Titans need a tank for him. And I'm like, I need to see him play a little bit more football.
I think he's going to be good. Yeah. Like I'm not a doubter. I think he's going to be fine with Steve Sarkisian and the players he's going to have around him and that offense and his ability to run and throw. I think he's going to be good. I'm like you, though, Jared. I hesitate to say, well, this guy's the Heisman Trophy winner, and he's going to put up stats that are off the chart, and Texas is going to be there in the national championship game next year. I can't say that because we haven't seen him enough. I mean, when he checks into the game, it was like the Tim Tebow in 2006, where he's going to run every time he checked into the game. So it's not like he started a couple games in the middle of the year when Ewers was injured, but I just don't think we've seen enough yet. There's been flashes, but we just have not seen close to enough.
The Titans reportedly loved their meeting with Shedeur Sanders. Are you buying that Shedeur Sanders might be wowing teams in the meetings?
I buy it. I mean, the guy grew up around a microphone and a camera, so he knows how to handle himself in those settings, and he's been around his dad, who's done it forever. So, yeah, I think that he's got some savvy when it comes to meeting face-to-face with people, getting in front of a group of people. I think he's got the ability to control things the way he wants to control them. So I think he's going to be great in these interviews. I really do. Now, does that make him better than Cam Ward? I don't think so right now, but I do think that he's going to do very well in the team interviews.
Last one for you. What do you make of the Justin Tucker allegations that came from the Ravens kicker?
I'm thinking, man, when the Deshaun Watson news came out, that dude must have been sweating.
Dude,
So,
I thought the same thing.
I was like, holy cow. Can you imagine when that story's blowing up and that's all everyone is talking about? And you're thinking, man, this sounds a lot like what I've been doing at these salons, and they asked me not to come back. There's that tweet that's out there from 2021 where someone called it and said that he's been banned from multiple salons in Baltimore. So, I mean, look, this is a thing that's been around for a while. We don't know their allegations right now. He's obviously, thoroughly denying it. I mean, you couldn't have a more complete denial than his lawyers and him from it. So there's two sides to every story. I don't know what's true and what's not, but I am thinking, Jared, if he did do these things, golly, the amount of sweat pouring off his forehead the moment those Deshaun Watson allegations broke.
So I thought the exact same thing, which was, okay, as I read the story and I'm like, okay, so these allegations occur from 2012 to 2016. So I'm like, so if this guy is getting banned from these spas in 2014, he's probably not thinking a whole lot much of anything other than, oh yeah, the spa owner banned me, but it'll be fine. And then 8 years later, Deshaun Watson starts getting, I don't want to say drug through the mud because he did this to himself, but starts getting exposed, both literally and figuratively, for this, the massage stuff. And he must be sitting there sweating bullets at the idea of like, wait a minute, I've already been banned from a couple massages in town because I was inappropriate with the staff. And then here's my part. He came out and said that it's all a lie and that, they always say it's a lie. I have a hard time believing him when the owners of the spas have gone on the record and say, yeah, we terminated our relationship with him as a client because of inappropriate behavior.
Yeah, I do too. But I'll also say this, like, if you go through the allegations and maybe I missed one, it doesn't rise to the level of aggression of Deshaun Watson with some of the allegations. So it is a pretty easy thing to say, like, it was a misunderstanding. Like I get it. Like, and look, the salon's going to take the side of their employees. So if some woman is uncomfortable by someone for whatever reason, if they come in and say, this guy makes me uncomfortable, they're not filming the sessions. There's no proof of exactly what went down, but you're going to side with your employee and say, hey man, we can't have you back because you made her uncomfortable. Right. And I'm not saying what they're saying is a lie or any of that, but that's kind of how those things go. It's very similar. It's the Deshaun Watson playbook in a lot of ways. But I did read the allegations and think there's enough gray area here where you, I guess, could claim that there were mixed signals or something about what was actually happening and this and that. But regardless, I mean, it's clearly a bad look for Justin Tucker, however this turns out.
Will you be watching the Senior Bowl tomorrow?
I will not. No, I'll be watching college basketball tomorrow.
I tried to watch
a lot of time doing that.
I tried to watch the East-West Shrine game last night. I had it on for about 5 minutes and turned it off.
I'll be watching Tennessee try to not lose 3 straight against number 5 Florida, a team they just lost by 32 a couple weeks ago. So that's going to be very interesting. I'll be watching that tomorrow, and obviously Carolina Duke, even though UNC's not very good.
Now Calipari Arkansas versus
Calipari Arkansas too. Yeah, I'm going to tune in for that one also. Although I think Kentucky's liable to destroy them.
Arkansas sucks so bad. I mean, it's just really taken the juice out of the excitement for that.
It really has. And they lost their best player to injury. They were sucking already and then lost Boogie Flan. So it really zaps a lot of the excitement from that. And that team, just watching them in general and watching Cal in his first year at Arkansas.
Chad Withrow from Outkick, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, as always on our program. Chad, great stuff.
All right. Thanks, Jared.
Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
Cam Ward should be at the top of this list. And I say that hesitantly, but nevertheless, I'm going to agree with Mike T on this. Shador has all the intangibles, and we love the poise. We love the pedigree. We know where he gets what he gets, what he has from. He can make the requisite throws. He can chunk up some yards on the ground, but he's not that mobile. So listen to what they say about him. His arm is not that strong. He's not that mobile, but he's a winner. He finds a way to get things done. You know, that's the kind of stuff that we've said about the Brock Purdy's of the world and others. Obviously, I think Shador is an upgrade from that athletically, but nevertheless, that's what we're talking about here. When you look at Cam Ward, 67% of his passes completed, 4,313 yards, FBS best, 39 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions, played 5 years in college. 5 years. In that time span, 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. We can't ignore that. And so he has size, he has arm strength, he has all of those different things. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, let's say you're talking about Cleveland, let's say you're talking about Tennessee, let's say you're talking about New York. I think you have to take those confines into consideration as opposed to somebody playing indoors or somebody playing in confines like Los Angeles, for example. I think those things have to get taken into consideration. And your size, your durability, your arm strength, I think those things have to come into play when you talk about playing in inclement weather in the National Football League against grown men.
That was Stephen A. Smith. I don't know how much Cam Ward he's actually watched, but that was his take. So I did watch the tape on Cam Ward, and here's what I came away with. Number one, Cam Ward is a first-round prospect, but he is not, in my opinion, like some kind of generational prospect or anything like that. Number two, Cam Ward kind of reminds me a little of Anthony Richardson, but he's not as physically gifted as Richardson, but he has way more experience than Richardson. A little bit of Deshaun Watson, but he's not the pocket passer Deshaun is. A little bit of Kyler, but not the athlete Kyler was. A little bit of Daniel Jones, but with more talent throwing the ball. You know, there wasn't one guy I could circle and say, okay, this is who he reminds me of. Number three, again, he's a good athlete, but he is not an elite athlete. He is not Lamar Jackson. He is not Jalen Milroe. He is not Anthony Richardson. He's more Jalen Hurts-ish. And he's got some wow in him, number four, like some serious wow on some of the plays he makes. Number five, he either can't recognize the blitz or he doesn't care to recognize the blitz, and that will not fly in the National Football League. And six, in spite of the fact that people will say, well, he's a little careless with the football, and well, he's got a little YOLO to him, well, he's got a good arm, well, he is absolutely nothing like Will Levis. Will Levis is tight and uncomfortable, and Cam is a very fluid athlete. There is a significant difference between the two, though the outcome may end up being the same. Final analysis, the meetings will be really important. You know, does he inspire you? Do you think that you'll go to war with him? Will he put the work in? And I don't have the answers to that. But I feel much more comfortable taking Cam Ward at 16 than I would at number one. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, Stillman & Company, order 25 the game. Fireball Whiskey. Nothing starts your weekend or goes down as smooth as ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. That's right. If you are ready to get the weekend going, then you need to do so with Fireball Whiskey. It's real easy to ignite the night, and you can do so. Please be 21 years or older and enjoy responsibly. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We got something to give away. Be caller number, actually be the first caller right now at 615-737-1025, and you'll win a pair of tickets to Belmont's women's basketball game against Murray State this Saturday, tip-off set for 4 o'clock. That's tomorrow, as both teams are ranked in the top 50 of the nation, and the Belmont women's coach, Bart Brooks, joins us now on the program. First of all, Bart, we haven't talked in a while, and I want to start with this. It must be very exciting to have Murray State in the house in a top 50 matchup tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the Curb Center.
Hey, it's great to be here, Jared. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I tell you what, playing meaningful basketball games in the month of February, it gets me going. And I know people who love basketball, a break from the NFL, and we got a great opportunity to play a really good team in our home gym tomorrow. So I'm excited about it.
So when it comes to a game of this magnitude, how do you go about, I guess it's not March yet, but it will be February. How do you go about managing a game like that, given the circumstances?
Yeah, I think internally, when you're a coach and you're coaching your team and you're talking to your team, I tell them all the time that we're not going to get a trophy for tomorrow's game. We're not going to, it's not like it's going to make or break our season. Either way, whatever happens, it's just an opportunity to see where we are. But I tell you what, from an outside perspective, meaningful games, two teams, 8-1 in the conference, both of us coming in the 50s in the net, in the national rankings, and two really, really good teams, really good programs, and a lot of talented players. So I tell you what, we look forward to these games, and we get a chance to play it at the Curb Event Center tomorrow. And I'm very excited myself, and I know our players. I'm trying to keep them level and emotionally grounded, but I think it's going to be a great atmosphere, great environment, a great game.
Murray State, and this kind of a rivalry. I mean, I remember even the John Morant kind of rivalry with Belmont. How do you view the Murray State rivalry?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really fun to compete against that program, and they've got Rochelle Turner, their coach, does a great job, and they've got a player, Caitlin Young, who's been there. This is her 5th year, and I feel like I've been playing against her for 10 years. She's really talented. She's scored over 2,400 points in her career already, and one of the most accomplished players to ever play women's basketball. And so we get a chance to play those guys. It's always a great game. It doesn't matter if records are out the window when you play your rivals. And tomorrow, the cool thing about tomorrow is we're both really good, and should be a great game.
Bart, I actually have an interesting question for you. Bart Brooks is our guest, the Belmont women's coach. They play Murray State tomorrow at the Curb Center at 4 o'clock. Yesterday I was kind of caught off guard when I saw the announcement that Bill Haslam was putting a group together with Peyton Manning and Candace Parker and, trying to launch a WNBA team, a bid for a WNBA team. At your level, when you see something like that and that comes across your desk from a grassroots women's basketball standpoint, what do you make of it?
Well, I love it. I love that there's high profile athletes from other sports involved in women's basketball, involved in women's sports, involved in supporting and starting to grow our game. And I think for our players and just knowing so many of these WNBA players, these professional athletes who it's so challenging to get jobs in the WNBA. There's so few roster spots. So the more teams we can get, there's really talented players that have played their whole lives overseas that no one's got a chance to see them play since college. And man, it's really cool. And I think the game has grown. The talent pool is richer now than it's ever been. And I think we're going to see a lot more happen here in the next handful of years because of that. The resources from outside, and it's really cool news. Obviously, excited about it.
Can I put you on the hot seat with a question that I really just don't know the answer to?
Let's do it.
How much does a WNBA head coach make?
I don't have that answer either, but I tell you what, we've had two college coaches, Lynn Roberts at Utah and Carl Smesko at Florida Gulf Coast, take WNBA jobs this year. So. It's the first year, and I think the WNBA has been a place where a lot of coaches aspire to take good college jobs for the longest time, and this year I think that trend is starting to turn where there's some really good college coaches that are moving in that direction. So I wish I knew. I don't have an answer to that.
Wonder if that's him campaigning for the women's job at the I kid. Bart, good luck tomorrow against Murray State. Thank you so much. And thank you for the tickets that we just gave away. As always, good luck tomorrow.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate you.
Yep, that's Bart Brooks, the head coach of the Belmont women's team. And again, they will be in action tomorrow, 4:00 at the Curb Center, taking on Murray State. First place on the line in the conference. Very exciting times. With that, it's Predators game day.
It's hockey night in Smashville.
Walk over to Yossi. His one-timer, he scores!
Bringing you the keys to victory and the latest storylines surrounding the Nashville Predators. This is Predators Game Day, now on Stillman and Company.
Predators on the road for an early one. Predators Game Day presented by TJ Anderson Homes and Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. By the way, in the email where they have all the info, I am getting clips for the Tennessee Summit now as well with the Predators. Predators on the road tonight taking on Buffalo. Start time is 6:00, which is why we're out of here afterwards. And Ian, I did check today with Max. I texted Max. I guess Pete is going to be on the call today, even though it's a road game.
It's Buffalo, so, it's a trip for Pete.
Homecoming. So I checked with Max, and I said, who's starting in net? By the way, the Predators are 18-24-7, and Buffalo not much better at 19-26-5. Boy, Predators got a lot of games in hand, eh? And the Predators are favored, according to ESPN Bet. They're minus 125 and minus a goal and a half. So I guess Buffalo's really struggling. But I asked Max, I said, who's starting in net? And Max said that he's not there, but that according to Morning Skate, it looks like the big juice, not the little juice. UC Saros will not be in net, but Eustace Ananen. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Eustace Ananen will be in net.
Yep.
Let me say this. I want Saros in net because I want Saros to start winning because UC Saros needs to start paying what he owes. And I heard Andrew Burnett this morning on the morning show talking about how he thinks he's one of the best goalies in the game and he's an elite goaltender. And look, the coach has to say what he has to say, but let's not kid ourselves. Elite goalies do not lead the league in losses. They don't. Elite goalies win playoff series. This guy doesn't. So it's time for him to start paying what he owes. That's it for us. We are out of here. Everybody have a great weekend. Max has the pregame next. We will be live from Radio Row in New Orleans on Monday for Stillman and Company from the Super Bowl 102.5 The Game.